Hi. Okay, welcome back. We're still working on the foldable, and our objective is standard 5-point NBT, point A, point 2. And we are going to be able to do 3 things by the end of the lesson, not the end of today, but the end of the lesson. You will be able to explain the relationship between the values of numbers when multiplying or divided by the powers of 10. And you will also be able to explore the placement of the decimal point when multiplying or dividing a decimal by a power of 10. And also you will be able to use exponents to denote powers of 10. Okay, so before we start on the foldable, what I want you to do is flip on this page. I want you to flip it over to the back. There are 4 vocabulary words that we need to know, and we're just going to take note of them. That way, whenever we need to refer back to it, we can use that research-based thinking. Okay, so there's 4 vocabularies. We got exponent, powers of 10, inverse operation, and decimal. I'm going to hold this up, and what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video so that you can copy down the meanings of each of these words, okay? Or vocabulary words. So an exponent is the small raised number in a power that tells how many times to use the base as a factor. Power of 10, a number that can be written as a product of tens. Inverse operations, operations that undo the effect of each other. And decimal is a number containing a decimal point that separates a whole from fractional place values such as tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and so on. So go ahead and pause the video. Okay, welcome back. Now that we are finished with our definitions, we need to start on our foldable. Okay, so let's look at the inside. The inside says, I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, when you multiply, okay, so when you multiply a whole number by a power of 10, you add a blank to the end of the whole number for each power of 10. You add a 0. You add a 0, so you're going to put 0 right there. So we're going to say 0. Then your second one says, when you multiply a decimal by a power of 10, you move the decimal point to the blank for each power of 10. So in lesson 1, we talked about moving the digit. In lesson 2, we are talking about moving the decimal point. And I told you that's going to stay the same. So now it's going to be a little confusing, and that is okay. If you look over on the right, it shows you some decimal numbers, and it also shows you the power of 10. Okay? If we were to multiply 700 times 10 to the first power, we know that our decimal number has to get larger. So you can think about moving the decimal. We're going to move the decimal to the, you got it. We are moving the decimal point to the right. Okay? So far we have this. When you divide a whole number or decimal by a power of 10, you move the decimal point to the blank for each power of 10. So now, if you're looking at this right here, we know that our 5 has to get smaller because we're using division. Okay? And if our decimal point is here, because the 5 is a whole number, then we're going to have to move it to the left so that it will get smaller. Instead of being 5 ones, we need to make it 5 tenths. So we're going to say that we're moving it to the left. Okay? All right. So now we have left. Okay, so let's look at the first one. We have 45 times 10 to the second. 10 to the second. Okay. 45 times 10 to the second. This is the exponent. So we're going to write exponent up there. Okay. The exponent is the small raised number in a power that tells how many times to use the base as a factor. This is the base. So we're going to use 10 as a factor 2 times, which means you are going to do 10 times 10. 10 times 10 equals, drop 100. So now we have to multiply 45 times 100. And then right over here it says when you multiply a whole number by a power of 10, you add a 0 to the end of the whole number for each power of 10. There's two right here, 2 powers of 10. So that means we're going to add 2 zeros. So instead of 45, we now will have 4,500. Okay. Let's try this one. Let's try these up here. Okay. It says when you multiply a decimal by a power of 10, you move the decimal point to the right for each power of 10. So we have 700 times 10 to the first, which means it's just going to be 10. You're just multiplying it by 10, which we already know how to do that one. So let's move to 700 times 10 to the second. So we know that this is the exponent. The 2 is the exponent. The 10 is our base. And we're going to multiply 10 times 10, which equals 100. And then we have to move the decimal point 2 times. Okay, we're going to move it to the right. So we're going to go 1, 2. Okay, which gives us 7.0. Okay, and our third one says when you divide a whole number or decimal by a power of 10, you move the decimal point to the left for each power of 10. So with division, you have to move the decimal point to the left so your number will get smaller. So looking at 5 divided by 10 to the second power. Let's do that one. 10 is our base. 2 is our exponent, which tells us how many times we need to multiply 10 together. So 10 times 10 is 100. Okay. And we got the whole number 5. And now we have to move the decimal point 2 places to the left because we are dividing. So 1, 2. I don't see anything there, but my decimal point still had to move. It still had to move 2 places. We have to use a placeholder to show. So we put a 0 in that blank spot where the arrow went under. Okay, so now it's going to be 0.05. It's going to be 500ths. It went from 5 to 500ths. Okay, I want you to try to do the rest of these on your own. So go ahead and pause the video